Good evening, my name is Ivana Chrysalia Rehatalanit and I'm from State University of Makassar. Now, I will present my resume about the present and informed approach. The methodical history of previous chapter, even with our brief look at nation's functional syllabus, does not quite bring us up to the present. By the end of 1980s, the profession had learned some profound lessons from our past wanderings. We had learned to be courteously collective in making enlightened choices of teaching practice that were solidly grounded in the best of what we knew about second language learning and teaching. We had amassed enough research on learning and teaching that we could indeed formulate an integrated approach to language teaching practice. And perhaps ironically, the method that were such strong signposts of our century-old journey were no longer of great consequence in making our progress. An enlightened eclectic approach. It should be clear from the origin that as an enlightened eclectic teacher, you think in terms of number of possible methodological options at your disposal for tailoring classes to particular contexts. Your approach or rationale for language learning and teaching therefore takes on great importance. Your approach includes a number of basic principles of learning and teaching, on which you can rely for designing and evaluating classroom lessons. Your approach to language teaching methodology is the orientically well-informed global understanding of the process of learning and teaching. It is inspired by the interconnection of all your reading and observing and discussing and teaching, and that interconnections underlines everything that you do in the classroom. Communicative language teaching. In the previous chapter, you were introduced to a progressions of method that define a century of more of language teaching history. Beneath those methods lay some important theoretical assumption. The profession was determined to be behavioristically programmed scientifically ordered set of linguistic structures into the mind of learners through conditioning. 6 interconnected characteristics as a descriptions of CLT. First, classroom goals are focused on all of the components of communicative competence. Goals therefore must intertwine the original aspect of language with the pragmatic. Second, language techniques are designed to engage the learners in the pragmatic, authentic, functional use of language for meaning purpose or organizational language form are not the central focus, but rather aspects that of language that enable the learner to accomplish those purposes. Third, fluency and accuracy are seen as complementary principle underlining communicative techniques. At times, fluency may have to take one more importance than accuracy in order to keep learners meaningful engaged in language use. Fourth, students in a communicative classes ultimately have to use the language productively and receptively. Fifth, students are given opportunity to focus on their own learning process through an understanding of their own style of learning and through the development of appropriate strategies of autonomous learning. Sixth, the role of the teacher is that of facilitator and guide. The sixth characteristic underscore some major departures from earlier case. In some ways, the departures were a gradual product of outgrowing the numerous methods that characterize a long stretch of history. Cooperative and collaborative learning. A curriculum or classroom that is cooperative and therefore not competitive usually involves the above learning-centered characteristic. As students work together in pairs, they are a team whose players must work together in order to achieve goals successfully. Interactive learning. At the heart of current theories of communicative competence is the essentially interactive nature of communication. When you speak, for example, the extent to which your intended message is received is a factor of both your production and the listener reception. Most meaning in the semantic sense is a product of negotiation of give and take as interlocutors attempt to communicate. World language education. One of the most popular terms current sweeping through our profession, world language has been so widely and divergently interpreted that it unfortunately is on the verge of losing the impact that it once had. Content-based instructions. Content-based instructions, or CBI, according to Brinton, it refers to the concurrent study of language and subject matter with the form and sequence of learning presentations dictated by content material. Task-based instructions. While there is a good deal of variation among experts on how to describe or define text, concept of text seems to capture the essential. Topics for discussion, action, and research. First, Review the nations that your overall approach to language teaching can directly to curriculum design and lesson techniques without subscribing to a method. As the term was the use in the previous chapter, can you still comfortably use the term methodology to refer to pedagogical practice in general? As you read the other research literature in the field of language teaching, pay special attention to how an author uses these terms. You will find some disparity in the various understanding of the terms. Second, a checklist of the 7 items was provided for readers to mentally respond to as students to compare their reasons with those of a partner. Third, in anticipations, in which readers will encounter principle of language learning and teaching in small group, some assertion about language learning that one might include in a description of an approach to language teaching. Without looking back, students should write their own brief definitions. Example is 1. Learn-centered instructions. Second, cooperative and collaborative learning, interactive learning. World language education, content-based instruction, task-based instructions. That's all about my resume. See you next time and thank you.